Hello and welcome to the BA News Show, your weekly news show every week with your hosts. Me, I'm Rich, and my good friend and gaming padre, Tabs. Say hello, Tabs.
Hello, BArcadians. Ooh, what's this, Rich? Grafted to my hand and will be for the next 4 days, probably.
This is it. I've also got the exact same thing. The old ProSense controller, which was...
DualSense, dude. DualSense, get it right.
What did I say?
ProSense.
Where's that come from?
Have you got a third-party version?
Yeah, I've got a third-party version. Yeah, the old DualSense. What's your initial... Let's do an initial impressions at the start of the video on the DualSense, Tabs. Go.
Yeah, I really like it. It feels solid. I've warmed up to the kind of design of it. I'd much prefer it if it was black, but I've warmed up to it. Feels premium, feels solid. I've just said to you there, I love the feel of a new controller, just where you don't have that kind of grainy grittiness in the analog sticks and everything just feels nice and smooth. So yeah, I mean, more importantly as well, she don't half play well, as we've both evidenced on Astro's Playroom.
Absolutely, and we'll be doing some also after this, or probably a bit later on, but yeah. Yeah, excellent. Well, enough about Nextgen. We're going to talk about that quite a bit in the news, extensively, I would say. So why don't you tell us, Tabs, what you've been playing this week?
Pikmin 3 Deluxe, it started with, pretty much completed that.
Nice.
I mean, I've got assignments to do, I've got missions I could get my teeth into, but I feel like I've had my fill. I've completed the main story. There's plenty more to be played, so I'm happy to put it down for now. Then what did I pick up? I went back to Ori on the Switch, played through that, had a traumatic experience. There's a section on it where this water's rising on screen, you have to run away from it. It's probably the most frustrating section of gaming I've played for many, many years, and I literally had that impulse at one point to hoy the Switch at the wall next to me. I literally had that. I laughed at myself and thought, oh my god, I've not been here in a long time. So
Excellent.
That was that, and then of course today PS5, we played Astrobot. I played a little bit of Spider-Man as well. So it's been a frantic week, but loving it. What about you, my friend?
So I'm on sort of a similar trajectory in some respects. Played a lot of Pikmin 3 up until actually this morning. I was playing quite a bit of Pikmin 3 while I was waiting for the PS5 to arrive. Completed the story, I think I said that last week. I've completed all of the side stories, planned all of them, started playing the missions, and then I'm guessing that'll be put down for a while now, given the fact there's Nextgen to entertain. And then today, I haven't managed to play a lot on the PS5, believe it or not. Had to pop out for a time during the day, which wasn't ideal. But yeah, played a bit of Astro's Playground, is it, Tabs? Playroom, is it?
Playroom, I think it is.
Yeah, played a bit of that with you, which I really enjoyed. I would describe that as like Mario with like funked up. That's how I would describe it, because of the way they use some of the haptic feedback and the way they've used the controls and stuff.
Yeah, and it's got more of like a sci-fi abstract aesthetic, I suppose, hasn't it? Which is just part and parcel.
Absolutely, really fun to play. And then my plan was, because I've bought the edition of Spider-Man that comes with the remastered original, that I would start the remastered original, because although I played some of it when me and Tabs were together, I haven't played it for myself, so I was going to play through that. Went to play some and realised I had to download it, and then it's 70 gigabytes. So that meant I have not managed to play that yet. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, sometime later on this evening it'll be ready and I can have a blast on that.
And then a quick word, Rich, should we just salute Game, who we got our PS5s
Absolutely.
from? And is it DHL?
DHL,
yeah. They did as well. Yeah. We got them relatively early. The boxes were in fairly good condition. We do have an unboxing video coming, hopefully by Monday, BArcadians, so stay tuned for that. And just, a minute of silence perhaps for all the people who had deliveries by Hermes and Yodel. Terrible delivery companies, at least in my experience.
I've actually subsequently read, Tabs, that the Royal Mail, ones that have been shipped out via Royal Mail, which were on a 24-hour service, have now gone to a 1 to 5 day service.
Oh God, you've got to feel for these people.
So I felt I was lucky to get a pre-order, and I feel like I'm really lucky to have actually got the delivery on the day. So very good. Quite a few of our friends have got them. They've managed to get them. I don't know of anyone that hasn't got them personally at the moment, but they are widespread apparently. But enough waffle, let's get into the news. And we start this week with more of the PS5 versus Series X and what we're calling round 2 after last week's sort of round 1. So Eurogamer and also Digital Foundry, they did a sort of joint piece on this, and this is what they had to say. Beyond performance matters, it's pretty clear that Assassin's Creed Valhalla still needs a lot of work, especially on Xbox platforms. We encountered plenty of bugs playing the consoles, in addition to some weird performance bottlenecks on Series consoles. We also noted that the camera's motion doesn't update with a linear relationship to frame rate during cutscenes, meaning some ugly looking stutter even with engine actually running flat out at 60 frames per second. PS5 is fine here. Ultimately, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is in a very strange place at the moment. By and large, it works as a 60 frames per second experience on PlayStation 5, but with some intrusive tearing. Perhaps some tweaks to the dynamic resolution scaler are required. Dropping lower than 1440p would be preferable to the tearing. Wow. Meanwhile, there are clear issues on the Xbox side that clearly need addressing. The frame pacing on cutscenes, along with the bizarre performance drops, are disappointing. So that's a real shame, and a game which I was interested in, and I was more interested especially given the fact that there was seemingly some fairly good reviews for this, and that really piques my interest. But then having dived a bit more into some of these things and some of the game issues, the bugs and the glitches, yeah, I don't know. I'm still back onto the fence on this one. What do you make of this, Tabs?
I think, again, mate, at this early stage, we can't make any conclusive judgments on this because, you know, these are launch games, they're straddling generations, they're still learning the new hardware, learning to optimize it. So yeah, this could easily just be a case of they've just not had enough time and they've not had enough experience with the new hardware. So it might not be anything about the fact that the Xbox is less powerful than the PS5 or vice versa. So, you know, we need to not stoke those console war fires.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I think you could probably take something from the fact that we've seen 2 cases now where the PS5 does seem to perform a little bit more consistently with some of these games. But as well, that could just be the case, Rich, that, you know, these developers expect the PS5 might be more popular. Therefore, that's where the bulk of the sales will be. Therefore, that's where the bulk of their investment and development should be on smoothing out the experiences on the PS5. So again, it might not be anything to do with the Xbox Series console's hardware.
I think you're right to point out that as console generations move along, the developers, they tend to be able to unlock more of the performance that is inherently within the consoles. We see that on every generation, so that by the time you get to the end of the console generation, you're seeing incredible looking games. You know, we've just seen it with, you know, The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima. Well, it might just be that at this moment, developers aren't able to unlock the same percentage of performance that they can from the PlayStation 5. And it might find, because as we know, the Xbox Series X is more powerful than the PlayStation 5, that as we move through the console generation, the Xbox Series X maybe sort of overtake the PlayStation 5 as they can unlock more of its, you know, inherent performance.
And this is it, and we've got to remember these games have likely been made using last-gen, you know, development pipelines, if you like, and technologies. Mm-hmm. So is that holding them back from really making the most of them, digging down into the metal, as they say, on the next-gen hardware? Probably. I mean, just to point out with this, I think the Series S console targets 30 frames per second, and they made a big deal of that it was disappointing they couldn't reach for a 60 frames per second mode on the Series S and just drop resolution even more. But that was one of the main points, I think, to take away from this. Perhaps developers haven't quite found that sweet spot in terms of dynamic resolution scaling to hit stable frame rates, you know, across the 2 consoles, and that's something that hopefully there's room to improve as we progress into next gen. So nothing conclusive to be said, but interesting if you're interested in, you know, technology and you know, analyses such as these.
Absolutely, and if you are, to be fair, Digital Foundry do a really good job of breaking down like stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, head over there and check them out.
Spot on. Shall I move us on, Rich?
Go for it, mate.
So, the next topic, Game of the Year Contenders. So we took this from Variety. let me know your thoughts after, Rich, and I'll just update the viewers on what we're talking about. So this year's nominees for the fan-voted Game Awards, taking place on December the 10th, have been announced, with a trio of buzzy titles leading the pack. So Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Part 2 scored 10 nominations, including for Game of the Year, Game Directing, Art Directing, Narrative, and Performance for voice actors Ashley Johnson and Laura Bailey. The action-adventure game debuted this summer, of course, for the PlayStation 4. Super Giant Games Hades picked up 8 nominations, and Sucker Punch's Ghost of Tsushima had 7, with both titles garnering Game of the Year noms. So just to summarise the Game of the Year nominations, we've got, in full, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Nintendo, Doom Eternal, id Software, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Square Enix, Ghost of Tsushima, Sucker Punch, Hades, Supergiant Games, and The Last of Us Part 2, Naughty Dog. And then something I would like to hear your comment on, Rich. The Game Awards themselves actually tweeted that the most nominated publishers for the Game Awards this year, and by far and away, PlayStation or PlayStation Studios, I presume, had the most of 22. Just to give you some context, next in line were Xbox and Supergiant, both with 8 nominated, nominations across the board. So yeah, I mean, first of all, Rich, what are your thoughts on that? Who have you voted for and why? And what do you make of that little tidbit at the end there?
So yeah, very interesting. I think it's, given the fact it's been a bit of a weird year for everybody, we've actually had some incredible games this year. And not just like big blockbuster games like the likes of Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2. Hades kept coming in and it's brilliantly fun to play, as me and Tabs have discussed before. So I think we've had a good year overall. For me, I'm going to say my game of the year is The Last of Us Part 2. I just think the emotive way it went about what it did, the graphics, the gameplay, and the way it was happy to take risks with its direction that maybe other people aren't prepared to take. And I feel like it was, I feel like it deserves Game of the Year, because I just feel like it was a little bit of almost a watershed moment for what they did with that game. And I think it really got you thinking about the way you play games and how immersed you are in them. So that's really interesting. And I think it's fairly obvious that PlayStation, over this console generation of the PS4, have developed that they know that the way to sell consoles is with the games. And PlayStation Studios is such a big collection of developers now that it does stand to reason that there are going to be the most nominations with 22.
This is it. I mean, for me, I tend to agree, mate. I think I would personally have voted for The Last of Us Part 2 as Game of the Year, based, largely on, the scope and ambition behind that project, the painstaking attention to detail that we know went into it, many years of development. But more so than anything else, as you've mentioned there, the kind of the brave approach to narrative devices, narrative structure, which really was challenging, from a perspective of gamers. We've seen that in the massive backlash and outcry from a lot of fans of the series. But I think, it was so brave what they did, and it was so thought-provoking. It lingered with me for days, weeks afterwards. I couldn't stop thinking about it because of how powerful the experience was. However, I think there is a case for Animal Crossing, in terms of, I joked on Twitter, its services to humanity, getting a lot of people through this lockdown situation and letting us live something of a virtual life outside of, what our lives have become during COVID-19. I've not played Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII, but even Hades, personally, mate, I had a lot more fun with Hades than I did The Last of Us Part 2.
Absolutely.
And I thought the design was just fabulous, and the aesthetics, the style behind it was just, absolutely incredible. But for me personally, I couldn't, I just can't reach above The Last of Us Part 2. And like you say, I suppose the impact that it's probably going to have long term. But I mean, go on.
The only caveat I would like to say is the most fun I had playing a game this year was on Ghost of Tsushima. I absolutely loved that game. And if it hadn't been for such I feel like I had a moment with Last of Us Part 2. I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but there was that realization that I was invested deeply into a game. I was invested in it in the extent that I would get invested in, a film that really moves me, or a TV program that really moves me. And I think that was the thing that really moved that on and made me think, okay, this is brilliant.
Well, this is it, and I think if Animal Crossing, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, The Last of Us Part 2, if any of those games wins Game of the Year, I don't think I'll have a problem with it. I can see the reasons behind it, but yeah, personally, fingers crossed for The Last of Us Part 2. And yeah, I mean, BArcadians, let us know your thoughts. Plenty to be said and discussed on this one. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. What have you personally voted for? But Rich, let's move on this news show. We only have so much time, don't we?
Absolutely. So, on to Capcom Leaks. So this one comes from Game Informer. For Resident Evil fans, one of the finding alleges that a demo of Resident Evil Village will debut just before a launch planned for this upcoming April 2021. According to the emails, it is set for a current gen release as well. Also found in the emails is that Resident Evil 4 and Oculus Rift could be announced here soon, in addition to the aforementioned multiplayer experience for Resident Evil Village, which is said to have a battle royale component to it. Very interesting indeed. Also included in the leak was a new Ace Attorney collection to be released for PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch players, as well as a few unannounced projects like the new project coming to Switch in February, codenamed Guillotine, in addition to the May release unannounced project called Reina?
No idea how to pronounce that. Raiwa?
Yeah, that's a weird one, isn't it? Also unannounced is a shooter multiplayer game called Shield that is reportedly specifically geared for streamers. Okay, very interesting. The release documents also claim that Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2 will be arriving on PC post-console launch, with the former arriving in October 2021 and the latter just before that for a June 2021 PC and Switch date. And finally in this leak was Devil May Cry 2 source code was also found alongside Umbrella Chronicles, in addition to paperwork that looks like Resident Evil 7 DLC will have a timed exclusivity agreement with Sony in addition to demo exclusivity. And all that.
And I'll apologise on this, my friend. I didn't actually put this at the start, but the context behind this, that they've essentially been, hacked, and they were being held to ransom, Capcom, by these hackers. They would release information unless they got, what their demands were met. And I think some of the information, therefore, they've hacked ended up being released probably because Capcom refused to play ball. I think that's the gist behind this story. But
I was literally about to say that. I was about to say all of this comes from that, but you sorted us out, mate. So what's your thoughts, Dad? I mean, there's such a wealth of information there. It's hard to know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, great. I'd love to see a demo of Resident Evil Village because I'm really excited about it. If we can get that a bit sooner before this, the launch, as we say, in April 2021, according to this. Interesting about this VR Resident Evil 4 experience coming to Oculus Rift. Great game. And I mean, blimey, that would be a harrowing experience in VR, being sieged by those villagers. There's loads of good stuff here. Ace Attorney has its fan base. Interesting, this codename Guillotine game for the Switch. Shield also sounds interesting, although, geared for streamers, I'm not so sure that'll be my cup of tea. And then Monster Hunter stuff. I mean, it all sounds true, that's for sure. It sounds like it's definitely going to be part of their pipeline. But you know what? Now this is out there, Capcom might look to change things and design a different schedule based on the fact that this has all been leaked. Because it's a shame, isn't it? It's not great for businesses to have these sorts of things just spilled the beans on, and it doesn't help with their marketing, building hype and excitement for things. But
absolutely,
I'm broadly happy as a gamer.
I think it's really interesting. Probably the thing that I find most interesting is the fact that they're going to potentially put a battle royale component into Resident Evil Village. I mean, that would be new for them to do that in a Resident Evil game. Could be very interesting. I don't know. It could be one of those, battle royales are very successful, let's just cash in on that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that works, and how do some of the people play as the monsters? I don't know, how would that work? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think in their recent kind of spin-off multiplayer titles, like, what was it, Resistance on Resident Evil 3, I don't think they were that popular.
Okay.
They didn't have that long a lifespan, so, they're probably on a bit of a bad run for that. But yeah, fingers crossed, Battle Royals is hugely popular. Does that suggest that Resident Evil Village has big open world environments? Because obviously Battle Royales kind of need that to thrive. perhaps, which is something we could derive. But yeah, no, fingers crossed. From all accounts, all the rumblings I'm hearing, they think they've got something special on their hands with Resident Evil Village, which pleases me hugely because it seems to follow in the footsteps of Resident Evil 4, which is one of my favourite games in the series. So this all bodes well. And of course, I'm also excited for the Monster Hunter stuff, which we've got to look forward to next year too. And it's a bit of a no-brainer to bring that to PC because I think, again, that's been very popular on the PC platform as well. But yeah, all round, sounds like they're doing really well. Capcom will have a bright future based on this, but just a bit of a shame that the hackers did what they did, I suppose.
And on that bombshell that Tabs is in bed with some Capcom leakers and he's working with someone at Capcom leaking all these stories, let's move on to everything else.
What?
You just made it sound like, from what I'm hearing on the ground, like you've got some informant at Capcom.
Oh no, all I mean is Twitter.
Yeah, I thought that's what you meant, but it sounded funny. Anyway, I digress. Everything else. So, Demon's Souls currently sits at 92 on Metacritic, and it has a must-play stamp to it. So, I think that duly says that me and Tav should be going out to buy this. Let us know what you think, Arcadians.
Agreed on that, mate. And while we're talking about Metacritic, Age of Calamity, Hyrule Warriors, of course, Age of Calamity has received a Metacritic so far of 79.
Okay.
So not too bad. I mean, I thought if it was going to be around the 8 out of 10, I'm not sure on it. If it was going to be consistent 9s, I would have definitely bought it. But yeah, I'm not sure on that.
To be honest,
from
what you were saying, I thought this was going to be high 80s. I genuinely thought that's where we were saying. You were saying it was being,
Some have, mate. Some have. I think IGN gave it a 9.
Oh, well, okay.
So
that's cool. Moving on, you heard us speak about the Game Awards. So hosting it this year, will be Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham.
A new Cyberpunk trailer has dropped, all about Johnny Silverhand, and essentially it's just dropped, hasn't it, Rich, today on Thursday when we filmed. So I've tried desperately to catch up on it whilst we were preparing, but I've failed miserably. So all I can say is there's a lot of stuff about Keanu Reeves and motion capture on there that looks pretty and, is no doubt breathtaking. So.
And moving on, a new Bond game is in the works by Hitman developer IO Interactive. Currently it's codenamed Project 007. Very interested by that.
Just remake GoldenEye and I'll be very happy.
Remake GoldenEye on the newly Unreal Engine 5?
Oh, that'd be insane, wouldn't it? It's got to feel like GoldenEye, though.
Yeah.
But anyway, we can pipe dream all day long. Far Cry 6 is rumoured to be releasing in May 2021. Something sort of looking forward to.
Interesting. God of War Ragnarok may not be a PS5 exclusive. Jim Ryan was interviewed this week and he wouldn't confirm or deny whether it was also in works for the PS4. I don't think there's a lot to be read into this. I think it's a no-brainer. For me, they would release it on the PS4, a slightly dumbed-down version of the PS5. Yeah, I don't know. Not. I
mean, what is he, the CEO or something?
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember Reggie Fils-Aimé, whenever he got interviewed, Nintendo of America bod, he'd always say stuff like that. I can't confirm or deny or no comment. You can't draw a lot from this stuff. No. But personally, I hope it doesn't get held back by a last generation, port. That would be a shame. Creator and former IGN employee Alana Pierce has joined God of War developer Sony Santa Monica as a game writer. Congratulations, Alana.
Interesting. I'm not sure how you go from a sort of content creator and game journalist to a game writer, but I think she's there as a junior, so that's interesting. She's obviously gone there to learn the ropes, but very interesting. It just shows the sky's the limit in these things.
She's obviously got a good network in the industry, but presumably she's got some portfolio of writing credentials, to go along with this, because like you say, it does seem like a little bit of a strange transition, but no, good luck to her. I mean, it must be fantastic to write for, PlayStation Studios.
Absolutely.
They do good stuff.
Absolutely. Apparently, according to a rumour, the PS4 version of Cyberpunk is going to be coming on 2 discs. I'm guessing similar to the way The Last of Us Part 2 also came on 2 discs. So you have a data disc and a game disc.
And then finally, Deathloop, Bo.
It's a typo. I think you do that.
Oh, sorry, Deathloop now confirmed release date is the 21st of May. Mate, honestly, my brain's not working. That wasn't me trying to outline it. I'm just being dumb.
You seem to have put an error in here.
Yeah, so no, Deathloop confirmed 21st of May, around my birthday next year. Yeah, it looks cool. It's made by the Dishonored team. I love those games, so looking forward to that one.
Absolutely, and that is everything on the news this week for what is an exciting week with the obviously PS5 has landed. Hopefully for lots of you. Hopefully some of you have managed to get the Xbox. If you managed to get one of those, was that earlier on in the week or was that last week? I don't know. It's all a blur now. So yeah, if you've enjoyed the news, definitely give it a like. It really helps us. If you're new here and you've liked what you've seen, subscribe, click that bell to stay abreast of all our notifications. And I think that's all we've got time for on this bumper edition of the BA News Show, and we'll see you next week. Another one for the archive.
Stamped and completed.